Page 3 now, the U.S. economy as measured by a once mighty company, Radio Shack. Sadly, the batteries are dead, and to make matters worse, Radio Shack is poised to betray its loyal card-carrying customers. Radio Shack will auction off its customer information as part of its bankruptcy sale. Names, addresses, phone numbers of 117 million customers.
Like Radio Shack now, and they're going to vilify Radio Shack. But at the end of the day, Radio Shack isn't doing anything all other major corporations haven't been doing for many years.
But states are lining up against the move. The Texas Attorney General has filed an objection to the sale, and now New York State's Attorney General Eric Schneiderman issued a statement saying, when a company collects private customer data on the condition that it will not be resold, it is the company's responsibility to uphold their end of the bargain. So while this may become a legal battle, what should consumers do to protect their information? Paul Viola says, just say no.
When you go shopping, the proprietor is not entitled to any personal information outside of the information you need to effect that transaction. So if they're going to be asking you anything additional, the answer is absolutely not.
Now, Radio Shack had a privacy policy. The company did promise that it would not sell or rent personal information, but who or what can you hold accountable if the company is no more? Joining me now, President of Wilsey Asset Management and Daily Ledger contributor, Brent Wilsey. Brent, you know, back in the day, I had one of those battery cards.
Oh, the battery
from, remember those? We're old.
I do. We won't tell you. Yeah, I do remember those.
Who would have known that information we filled out on that battery card was going to be sold to whoever?
Mm-hmm. And Graham, as that one gentleman said, I mean, companies do, that's their value. You know, I have an investment firm, very valuable to my customers, cell phone companies, very valuable. Radio Shack management made a big mistake before saying, we're not going to sell this data. Well, now they're going back in the word saying, oh, well, we changed our mind, now we're going to sell it. You can't do that. If you get customers' data, you can't tell them you're not going to sell it and then try to sell it. So they should go to court over this. They should lose on that because they promised they would not sell it. And if you do give a company your information and they say they're not going to sell it, well, then they shouldn't. And if they do, then they should tell you they're not going to sell it.
Yeah, you know, and it's sad what happened with Radio Shack, but really it's the free markets at work, number one. And number two, it appears to me that this company didn't grow. It didn't change with the times. You know, it still had these brick and mortar locations, which are fine, but you have to obviously, in this day and age, increase your online presence and probably do a little less brick and mortar. I think that maybe that was the formula for part of their demise anyway.
You know, Graham, a few years ago, I think 4 or 5 years ago, I liked this company, looked pretty good. We made some money on it and so forth, but management failed to keep up with the changes. And they had all these great locations, all this great customer data. The management did not know how to use that, and that's why now they're in bankruptcy. You've got good data, good locations, you've got to use that, and they didn't.
Speaking of data, we're going to be coming up on a Q1 GDP number, and it seems as though what I'm hearing here and there is that the number may not be looking so good.
Yeah, I mean, we're looking for soft data now because I'm looking at manufacturing numbers. I'm looking at retail sales, car sales. I mean, they're all soft, and we're back to the same as last year. We're the Northeast. I mean, it's cold, it's snowy. A friend of mine sent me a picture. I mean, his windows are covered with snow. You're not going to go out and buy. So the first quarter data, if we get GDP at 1.5% to 2%, I'm going to cheer because that'd be phenomenal. However, the second quarter GDP, again, I think will be above the estimates. So be prepared. Look at both quarters. But the first quarter, not going to look good on GDP.
But don't we always have weather in the wintertime?
No, you know, I still have family back east, and they were bragging a couple years ago, oh, we get almost no snow, and it's great. Now it's back to normal. Snow, cold, and they don't like it. Okay,
so we're kind of in a trend here, then, if what you're saying is correct, because last first quarter, we had bad weather as well, and wasn't it a negative number?
Yes, it was negative. I think negative 1.9 or something.
So terrible. Is there a possibility we might see that again?
I don't think it'll be that bad, but I don't think it's a negative number, but I think it could be 1 to 2% is what we'll look at.
Okay, so we're looking down the road then, as we always try and do. The Fed. First, they were talking about possibly June raising interest rates. Now maybe it's being pushed back to later in the summer, maybe even in the fall. What's your gut right now in terms of what the Fed is going to do vis-a-vis with inflation?
Well, and 6 months ago, I thought the Fed would increase sooner, like the first quarter. Well, then we saw the data not so good. So I think now they could push that back till late summer as opposed to maybe early summer because the data is just not coming in. Unless they do think the same way I'm doing, saying, well, yeah, first quarter, it's because of the snow. Second quarter's been great, so let's raise interest rates and be ahead of the curve. So they might look at that. Inflation, still not there. Energy's kind of volatile and so forth. We had a year-over-year inflation rate of 1.7%. I do believe that's going to change because our labor market is getting very tight. As that gets tight, the only way to get people to kind of work for you is you raise wages. You raise wages, well, that raises prices, and we're going to see more inflation. I think the end of the year and next year we'll probably have inflation. I'm going to guess 4 to 6%, maybe next year higher.
That's relatively high. All right, so what about, what does all this spell for the housing market if interest rates go up? And has the stock market already built in an interest rate increase?
The stock market is on the pricey side. It's not overvalued, but it's on the pricey side. So the stock market is prepared for rates to increase. So we'll see some pullback when it actually happens. But until rates get much, much higher, the stock market will still be okay. So initial response will be down. Housing market's a different story. Housing market's doing pretty good. We had existing home sales up about 1.2%, about 4.9 million homes on an annual basis. New home sales just were phenomenal. I mean, they came in at, 539,000. The estimate was 462,000. The inventory for new homes is the lowest since June 2013, like 4.9 months. So we got to start building new homes. An investment tip, maybe look at home builders now.
Okay, so the Forbes came out with their list of most valuable baseball teams. Not surprised that the New York Yankees franchise is #1. Really, to me, these have become, rather than just baseball teams and baseball franchises, they've become giant marketing machines.
Graham, you hit the nail right on the head there, because what's happening is you got to look, and the teams are worth $1.2 billion, up 48% from last year. Let's look where the revenue comes from. It comes from TV. It comes from ticket sales, from sponsors like Coke and Miller's and stuff like that. I mean, all these sponsors put all this money in because they want to be part of it, merchandise sales. Right. Well, the values are based on, let's know, the enterprise value was your equity minus your debt, and then the revenue on a multiple. Now, on a stock, we call this a PE ratio, of 12, 13, 14 times. Well, look at the revenue based on these baseball teams. My question is, who sets this revenue per sales in the market set by people buying it? I'm concerned that this is way inflated too high. It might be based on 1 or 2 sales. So I think these are inflated pretty high. But TV sales, I mean, they got, what was it, $2.9 billion, which accounts for 39% of the revenue. A lot of this money's coming from TV. And think about this, Graham, where do they get the money? Yeah. They got to raise their prices on their advertisers.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's a point where ticket sales is probably a small fraction compared to the television. And let's face it, the LA Dodgers just sold recently for, I think it was about $2 billion. So, I guess the answer to your question is what the market will bear. And if somebody will pay $2 billion, then that's what the market bears.
It's all about eyeballs, seeing the baseball games.
That's it. Brent, thanks.